All right, Dana, you and I talked about it off camera. I'm a little upset that we're actually in New York and New Jersey. Although I love the tri-state area, I should be in Vegas in February, a Canadian in Vegas. That's what I wanted. What happened here?
75 and beautiful in Vegas right now, but Fox has a Super Bowl this year and they wanted us to be a part of, everything that's going on here. So here we are.
And of course, there was talk that the NFL could move the Super Bowl to Saturday, weather permitting, and then the UFC would have to move UFC 169 to Sunday. Doesn't look like it's going to happen right now, but if it did happen, how much of a headache would that be?
It wouldn't have been that bad. We got it all worked out that we could move it, so no biggie.
What would have to go into that besides, is it a big, huge partner thing, a venue thing? I mean, what would have to go into that?
Yeah, the venue obviously would work with us and all the pay-per-view companies. But the hard part was, and being on Saturday, if the Super Bowl moved to Saturday, is Fox Sports 1. The prelims are going to be live and free on Fox Sports 1, so that would have been a problem.
You made some headlines when you said Renan Barao, should he defeat Urijah Faber, should be number one on the pound-for-pound list. And, of course, people rebutted with, wait a second, there's Aldo on the card, there's John Jones. What do you have to say about that?
I agree. Yeah, I know. I mean, the pound-for-pound thing is completely, everybody has their own opinions. But Renan Barao, we're going on 9 years undefeated here. He's lost one fight in his whole career, and it was years ago. I don't know if it was his first fight or, his first fight. He lost his first fight and then never lost again.
Urijah Faber, in my opinion, would make an absolutely incredible Hollywood story if he could actually win this belt, considering what he had to go through with his sister, having the car accident, having to fight Renan in Calgary, and then 4 fights in 2013. He would have been the fighter of the year if it wasn't for Anderson Silva, or for Chris Weidman, let's be honest. But this is a guy that can cap off on an incredible run and potentially be a big draw for the UFC if he becomes a champ.
You know what I love about this fight? Renan Barao is unbelievable. And Uriah's never looked better. He is on a tear. He's in the greatest shape he's ever been in. This will be his 5th fight in 10 months. I love that because you get in such good shape being that active. Timing's on, everything. This is like 2 of the best guys in the world in their prime fighting for a world title. Nothing better. I love it.
Ricardo Lamas today showed up dressed to impress. He's already got the championship attire in the suit. The funny thing is, though, when I talked to some of the guys on the UFC roster, former guys, and I said, give me your thoughts, give me your analysis on Jose Aldo Jr. versus Ricardo Lamas, I got a lot of, who? Who's he fighting? And I said, Ricardo Lamas. The guy's an absolute destroyer at 145 pounds. And they were saying, who? How have you dealt with promoting him?
Yeah, it's one of those things where he has been, in this position for a while. He feels like he should have got this fight sooner than he has, and he probably should have, but it just didn't line up that way. And this is what I always say to people, Alexander Gustafsson, okay? When we made the Alexander Gustafsson-John Jones fight, people were like, who? And Alexander Gustafsson went out there and made everybody talk about him on Sunday morning. And Ricardo Lamas has that opportunity on Saturday night. Okay, most of the people haven't heard of him, don't know who he is. Well, everybody knows who Aldo is. So now it's up to Lamas to go out and, when I made that Gustafsson fight, the media, the fans were all like, this is ridiculous. Who is this guy? He's going to get murdered. Fight's over. Alexander Gustafsson is all anybody's talking about. People think he won the fight. Then he wins the EA cover vote. The fans vote him for the cover of the EA Sports game. And then we don't make the rematch, and people are like, you idiots, that's the biggest rematch in the world. Alexander Gustafsson, that's how it works.
The other big fight in the card, of course, is Frank Mir taking on Alistair Overeem. The original description or sort of old wrestling adage people had on it was a loser leaves town match. You're beginning to squash that and say, no, hold on a second. Doesn't mean that the loser is going to leave the UFC. What's the latest on that bout?
Well, here's the thing. I don't ever make those decisions before a fight. What if that fight is like Bigfoot Silva and Mark Hunt? What if it's that type of a fight? I wouldn't want to cut anybody, and nobody would want them cut. So let's see. They again, much like Ricardo Lamas, they have to perform on Saturday night.
How bad does Frank Mir have to start picking up the pace the minute the referee steps out of the way? Because it seems he starts slow and he tries to absorb what his opponents do to him and ends up losing in that manner.
Well, he doesn't want to absorb in this fight. He does not want to. Let me tell you what. We all know that first 2.5 minutes of Alistair Overeem is pure hell. He's going to come out and try to, kick your head to another planet. Frank Mir is going to have to come right in, trade with him, bang with him early, and try to get him to the ground.
Spoke with Matt Serra, had some really good time with Matt Serra and Ray Longwell yesterday. And the first thing Matt Serra said is he's done. He doesn't want to come back unless Matt Hughes decides to jump off the coach. We know that's not going to happen. Can we get your thoughts on Matt Serra's career as in the UFC?
Well, Matt Serra would be the smallest heavyweight in history if he came back. So it's probably a good idea that he doesn't. But we could actually bring him back and make people believe it's Brock Lesnar. I don't know. I love Matt Serra. I love him so much. He's been such a huge part of this company since literally the day we bought it. And he will always be a part of the UFC. And he's done very well. He's got a, beautiful family. I mean, a great business. The guy's got everything you could ever ask for, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
And obviously he said that, my career is done. The highlight was obviously the George St. Pierre fight. George St. Pierre, yourself, Lorenzo, in a bit of a squabble, and I tried to dissect most of it. And I personally didn't see George ever call the UFC a monopoly. What he said is they have the power to make changes. And I think at times when it comes to George, there's always sort of a lost in translation effect. Have you guys had a conversation yet?
I could not agree with you more. And you're the first, journalist to say that. And it's true. Every time that George St. Pierre says something or whatever, it gets lost in translation, and there's all these things that come out. That's why, here's a fact. I'll give you a fact. I know he's upset because I think that Johnny Hendricks won the fight, which is unlike George St. Pierre too. Normally he's just like, hey, listen, everybody's entitled to their opinions. Nobody has said more good things about George St. Pierre over the last 10 years than me. Actually, to the point where I'm like, how is this guy not sponsored by every major company in Canada? He's the greatest, thing Canada's ever seen. But we've had a great relationship for 10 years, and I guess he's upset with me right now. No big deal. We're grown men. We'll figure it out, and that's it. I mean, originally, the reason he walked away, people can spin it and turn it into whatever they want. He walked away because he's got personal problems that he wanted to deal with. He's going to deal with his personal problems. He'll come back. We'll talk, and we'll either figure it out or we won't. We'll see what happens.
The one thing I haven't spoken to George about, which I probably will when I get back home, is the whole VADA thing. And I think the one thing that camp missed is VADA has no jurisdiction. It doesn't have jurisdiction in Vegas. They can do carbon isotope ratio testing, which will test for synthetic testosterone, and that's why he wanted to do it. The UFC said, let's do WADA because it's the same sort of labs. VADA doesn't have jurisdiction. Do you think if he knew that, he wouldn't have went with VADA?
I don't know, but I know he was upset too, and I said the whole thing is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, and the reality is this: these guys approached George St. Pierre and said, if you do this with us, or they approached him. I don't know how it all went down, but they're basically like, we'll pay for everything, we'll pay for the whole thing. Then they're like, well, Johnny Hendricks should do it too. Well, Johnny Hendricks said, well, I don't want to use them. I want to use these guys. It's almost like asking him to, like a sponsor, like to use their sponsor to do it. And even with this outside testing, you realize like Victor Conti was with one of these companies recently.
He was advising, yeah.
Right. The biggest cheater. The guy's so creepy. I literally can't stand this guy. He basically was the biggest cheater on earth, right? Then he flips and rats on everybody, tells all these things. Now I'm a good guy. Now I'm a good guy, everybody, and I'm actually gonna be overseeing drug testing now. Are you kidding me? Oh my God! Just because somebody says they want to go with an outside company doesn't mean that outside company is like, all right.
Roy Nelson applying for the job for executive director. You think it's a publicity stunt, or you think Roy's actually trying to do it?
He's a beauty. You never know what he's doing. I don't know if he's serious or he just wants some attention, but either way, he got it.
Yesterday, the Ultimate Fighting Championship announced an unprecedented 5 events in Canada for 2014. But I knew as the announcement was progressing, if certain cities aren't mentioned, I'm going to get the brunt of it. And if a couple cities weren't mentioned, Calgary and Winnipeg. Obviously, there was a promise to go back to Calgary after what happened with UFC 149. Yep. Unfortunately, you're not going back there. Winnipeg, you said you'd go back to Winnipeg. So the fans in those states, Edmonton, Ottawa, these other markets, they're coming at me saying, well, Dana said this and Dana said that and Dana promised that. What message do you have for them?
Yeah, I loved Winnipeg, and we do owe Calgary. It's a fact. Those are facts. I loved Winnipeg. We had a great show there. I think the fans that all came out that night had a blast. And I owe Calgary. I owe Calgary another fight, a card that will stay together and that we can deliver. So obviously, my man up there running Canada has laid out some places, but and I haven't talked to him about that, but we owe Calgary another event.
The thing with Tom Wright is he loves provincial commissions. And in Alberta, they don't have provincial commissions. They have municipal commissions that can have sort of misleading ways of doing things. They do good things, they do bad things in people's opinion. Is that one of the issues why you don't go to Alberta, or why Tom may not choose Alberta?
You'll have to ask him that question. I don't know. But I don't care what commissions or whatever they have going on. We owe Calgary another event.
Okay, prelims on Sportsnet 360 on Saturday night. Iaquinta, one of Matt Serra's guys, he's taking on Kevin Lee. Final question. As you see with Matt Serra and Ray Longo, they sort of put together a middleweight champion. And they've got this kid, Iaquinta, who was on The Ultimate Fighter, who's an absolute terror the minute that referee steps out of the way. What are your thoughts on Iaquinta as we get set for Sportsnet 360 prelims?
Iaquinta is a beast. The kid looks better every time he fights. Help me. Let's do that again. Iaquinta is an absolute beast. Every time that kid fights, he looks better and better. And I agree with you. The Serra Longo gym is putting out some monsters, man. It's gonna be fun to watch him fight. The kid comes out to finish you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
There he is, UFC President Dana White, getting ready for UFC 169 Saturday night at the Prudential Center in New Jersey.